Ich bin bereit.
Okay. All right. Er ist bereit. Auf Deutsch. Er spricht auf Deutsch. Er ist bereit. It means he's ready. He's ready to accept. He's ready to accept his, what is that? Jesus on the cross. He's ready to die or something. Er ist bereit. Um, it's a reference, you know, I pick up things. This is going to be maybe a little bit difficult for people to accept. I listened to these two people talk about Notre Dame burning. And they're culture heroes. I'm going to have to do this quickly within 15 minutes. Catherine Austin Fitts, a likable person. Farrell, Joseph P. Farrell, has his own YouTube channel, talks about the Nefarium. And it's going to be difficult for some people to grasp what I'm going to say here. Things are easily misinterpreted and misunderstood, especially when it comes to art. I mean, everybody knows what they like, right? It's like, you know what you like, you know what art is all about, but you don't really know what art is all about unless you've actually done it in some form or other and transformed yourself within the activity that you do. And these people, no doubt, have transformed themselves. They're experts at things that they do. But the highest activity, as far as I know, in terms of, you know, making stuff like a painting or a sculpture or making something of significance, it requires a person to actually having done it in some way. But I'm going to just read a comment I left under these two. I'm going to attach a link. You can listen to the whole thing, and I'm going to dissect a little bit what they were talking about, which was the burning of Notre Dame and the edifice that represents culture and civilization. You'll see in my comments, I refer to okay, I'll say right off from the beginning, I'm disgusted by these two, right? Okay, I'm disgusted because they're talking about, relatively speaking, to what it is we're going through, a completely insignificant event. Although within the scheme of things and the hierarchy of the reptiles, this was important because, again, it's a diversion. It diverts us from, and I have no doubt this was orchestrated, like the 9/11 event. It was orchestrated. It's all produced and presented to us as an event. Oh, it just happened. Oh, in German it's called nur so. Nur so. It's just coincidence. You know, it's that kind of thing. And interesting, he would invoke the German language before he starts. Ich bin bereit, meaning Jesus on the cross was ready to be taken to meet the Father. Anyway. Let me just, you can listen to this, and I have made references to different time frames. There's so much in this. People, there is so much in this. What I feel to be, and I won't disparage these two too much because I think they're really committed to what they believe to be the truth. Again, truth is a moving target, people. Without that inner understanding of something, truth is a moving target. Okay, I'm just going to read, and I'd like you, if you're interested in my commentary, you can listen to their entire half-hour thing. How long is it? Yeah, about 33 minutes. You can listen to their discussion. I'm not going to go into it because on my screen capture thing, I only have 15 minutes, so I'm going to go through it and just talk a little bit about it. So they're talking about Notre Dame, the great event of the century, I suppose, the burning of Notre Dame. And I'll get to Fukushima. Obviously, people that understand what I'm doing down here, I talk, you know, with their astute understanding of the cosmos. Have they actually understood the real burning that's going on to all biology on the planet called caused by Fukushima? But anyway, I'll start at the top here. And in this cathedral, like all cathedrals, like Chartres, you can go, or in Germany, Cologne, you have many cathedrals that have representations of very disturbing images of gargoyles and demons and sick reproductions. What I have always said, humanity has a romance with the Grim Reaper. And the satanic notion, totally misunderstood as well, of, biblically speaking, Satan is a formulation. It's a mental formulation. And there's nothing wrong with the concept kabbalistically of Satan, because it's basically Shin Tav Naun, 3 letters make up the word Satan. Shin Tav Naun. And Tav is a principle. I think it's the 90. The 90 or the 9, is it the high? Yeah, it's the 90, which is the female principle, separating Shin, an enlightenment, a kind of enlightenment. It comes between enlightenment, but I'm not going to get into this, because when you understand the language that we were given by amazing minds that actually revealed stuff to us, but these guys are just touching on the surface of things, and I find it quite irritating, so that's why I'm commenting. So my first comment was, when you look at these cathedrals, there are a huge number of images of gargoyles throughout these, and they always go unnoticed for some reason. They didn't comment whatsoever on all the gargoyles they represent in the clip. Like, as you see them here, let's see if I can find one. Oh yeah, well, here's one. Okay, well, what the hell is going on here? What the hell is going on here? On a Roman Catholic cathedral. Oh yeah, it's to remind you not to go into the dark side of our nature, I guess. Yeah, no, not at all. They've got a romance with this element that they understand to be demonic. This is what's going on, and this is my conclusion about culture and history and all that. So this is not discussed. Okay, the place burnt. Well, the place didn't burn down. The roof burnt down, and it's all weird stuff that happened there. How quickly it burned. Oak doesn't burn. Oak is more resilient than steel, and it burned within 10-15 minutes. It's totally ridiculous. It's the devil is having a good time on this one. And I said, right here, I said, it would have been helpful to me if you had articulated just a little bit some of the symbols represented in and by this edifice, like the gargoyles and other structures that suggest demonic possession, ignored in the analysis you give of your such sycophants for culture and how brilliant and fantastic it is, represented by this building. I am not saying this is not an amazing accomplishment for humankind, but it's all been hijacked. It's all been hijacked, and they're just sitting at their shrine. Nonetheless, here I say, your analysis, nonetheless, active in your adoration of Notre Dame, the civilized world. They refer to the civilized world. And Notre Dame identifies the relationship the church hierarchy shares with a satanic. You know, what normal people think of satanic. Something most unassuming mortals are unable to see, including these two. And I just put a link in another one, Chart, which comes up in their conversation, has exactly the same demonic references. And the romance these structures instill in that it's instilled in our psyches, right? They're so brilliant. I'm at 8 minutes. I better hurry up. So don't be fooled by any of the imbecilic explanations why these gargoyles exist and all that. It's like it's there to divert us from what really is going on underneath. And they bring up Hitler not having burned Notre Dame. But the only reason he didn't burn it, he was waiting for another opportunity for his clan, right here, for his clan to continue their makimak. This is what my conclusion is. He didn't burn, he didn't give a shit about the edifices that give us hope and make the spirit live. They're right, you know, Hitler didn't even burn this place, but he only left it for someone else like Macron to do the business. And Gandhi said, this was a great thing that Gandhi said, you know, like civilization could be a good idea, especially for these two high-minded types venerating at the shrine that has given us more pain and suffering than any other symbols and achievements in Western culture. I mean, you look at the Catholic Church and the number of through the Jesuits and the Inquisition and all this stuff, the pain and suffering caused, so you stand at the shrine and venerate. a few good organ concerts, which they say, oh, I listened to a fabulous organ concert in this place. They'll never erase the depravity of this church and their cloaked degeneracy, like residential schools, the residential schools in Canada. Of course, they don't want to touch on that, run by the sadistic, murderous clergy. My spirit, I'll tell you, my spirit is still intact because I'm not attached to these edifices. I'm not invested in their symbols that basically disguise us to each other. You know, people listening to me and say, oh, how can you be an artist and trash art history? I'm not trashing art history. I'm trashing the fact that it was hijacked. And they used artists like Da Vinci. It'll come up, this comes up in my comment, who made weapons, WMDs for the Count of Milano for 18 years. Okay, now I say here, that said, their point that this was orchestrated, the burning, to break our spirit makes perfect sense, but for all the wrong reasons. They think this place was sacred in some way. Well, it's been hijacked. It could be, I suppose it could be, but it never actually was. It was never actually a sacred place. Okay, I'm going to slow down a bit because I was trying to keep the time frame. I'll just splice them together. I thought I could do it in 15 minutes. I could never do it in a short period of time. Okay, now I've gone to the clip. If you want to look at my comment at 1958, okay, I'll clip this one.
If we don't understand that, then if we jettison that principle, we end up with what? Well, we end up with Jackson Pollock.
Right.
You know, we end up with Arnold Schoenberg and all of this ugliness that we're surrounded by now. And most of that art, if you look at it, in my opinion, most of that modernist art is another example of nihilism.
Yeah.
Because it's an attack on beauty, it's an attack on virtue, it's an attack on goodness.
It's an attack on humanity.
It's an attack on humanity.
So,
all right, I'll just sort of make a brief comment on this. The idea that they're absolutely right. I think that there is an attack on humanity, physically and spiritually happening, but it's right within their circle, within their academic circle of brilliance. They've not recognized something in themselves, and he has an opinion, what he likes. In my opinion, he says, you know, Pollock is a representation of this ugliness that's going on. And Schoenberg is a representation of this ugliness. Of course, you can look at it from that point of view. Some people may even feel that the German art of the medieval times and through even the Renaissance was quite ugly. This is a verdict on German art that critics have called it the art of ugly. The German art history is ugly. So again, what is the notion of ugly? Is it something that is what is that? Don't do it. Ugly is bad. Well, you know, there is an aspect to the ugly art that's actually quite inspirational. And I think if I look at Pollock in terms of an image that he created that I'm attracted to, they're absolutely right. I mean, the stuff is just brutal on a level of what he might consider to be beautiful. But then there is a value to ugly. This is where I distinguish. This is where I say, unless you've actually been involved personally, physically, in producing something of value other than your books and your writing, fine, do your books and your writing, but keep your pie hole shut on something you haven't even done yourself. You're standing in your opinion. You're saying this is worthless, like Hitler said about the degenerate art that was produced by Otto Dix and the people that were the expressionists, Beckmann, the Kate Kolowitz, the people that were considered to be producing ugly art. What were they actually doing? They were representing a system that was failing. And of course, they're so high-minded in their understanding of what it really means to produce art that they can call it ugly and dismiss it. Right, Schoenberg, Pollock, the abstract expressionists. And I don't have a problem with saying they've identified an aspect to our civilization that has now has been so hijacked, and they were promoted because they represented the hijacking that was going on. But I'm looking past it because I understand that you can push yourself in a way of expressing something that may appear to be unpleasant, but actually has value. The way I've understood Pollock in the context of what has been hijacked. This is what I'm saying. And my comment here, I'll read it, at 1958. Do you realize that Hitler said exactly the same thing? The Entartete der Kunst, or the degenerate ugly art produced by the artists of the German Expressionist Weimar Republic, early 1900, 1915, 20 to 30, about the artists of the Weimar Republic. Based on your principle of art appreciation, you might want to look at someone like Alex Gray or Andrew Wyeth. By the way, Andrew Wyeth was loved by Nixon. Nixon came into the White House, took down all the abstract expressionist work, and put up Andrew Wyeth. To confirm your bias, or should real artists still paint like church icons from like Rublev from the Middle Ages, 1200, or maybe make paintings that are maybe a little bigger than Giotto? Pollock isn't making pretty paintings to disguise the shitter we're in. You need to look past your own taste. Anyway, that was my comment. Let's see the next clip.
But what we can preserve is the culture.
Right.
We can preserve our connection to the sacred. We can preserve the culture. We can nurture something that can be enduring.
Right.
That's what we can do.
Right.
And that's, now for each person, it's different.
It's going to be different.
Yeah.
Right. There's no magic formula here.
Now here they waver. For each person is different, but for me, I know what's ugly, what's not ugly. And what they're referring to is actually, this is like, I see this happening all the time, where you conflate certain things, and why I talk about what is external, what's internal. And her reference to culture being preserved. I'm not interested in preserving anything that's not working. And to refer to culture and the sacred in the same breath is erroneous. And my comment was right here, culture and the sacred are two completely different things. One is external and the other is internal. Another misdefinition that leads us into a blind acceptance of a notion of rightness and beauty. Do you see my point here? That we need to be able to distinguish in order not to let the subterfuge into us. So the brilliance that was considered to be culture has always been hijacked in some form or another. And to attach ourselves to preserving it is a big mistake. And I've said always, this is I'm criticized for this too. I wouldn't mind living in a mud hut wearing wood shoes if the sacred was in play. Now you can say to yourself, I see the sacred in the amazing structure and the sculptures that were created, but it's still just an external representation. The sacred is something that lives within, not without. This is, I think, what Jesus's messages were all about, that it's the kingdom of heaven is within. This is something he said. And for these two to start shedding tears about Notre Dame, and the people that criticize me for saying, well, let it burn, is not because I want an artifice that expresses such extraordinary abilities in the human being. It's not that at all. It's that it was never internalized. It's just something out there for people. They don't get it. People don't get it. What was my next point? Oh yeah, here's their big adoration of another reptile in history.
But one of the things she explained to me is that Da Vinci had done incredible work on anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
And when he died, all of his publications and notes and documents and drawings on science and the circulatory system, he really unpacked and figured out the circulatory system.
Okay, and she's going to say that these notes were ignored, I think.
Look at who it was turned over to. It was never published. And if you look,
okay, it was never published. And the attachment they have to science and the progress in science and all that kind of notion, that we've come a long way. If you wear a white coat and you figure shit out, how you can manipulate it, you're really evolved. You've arrived in some way. Well, this again is a weird notion. I don't understand this. Like, for thoughtful people who have deep connection to what it is where we come from, it's not out there, it's within. So Da did a whole thing on the circulatory system. He hadn't figured it out. He just mapped it. He looked at it and said, well, this is what it appears like when you look at it. And I shouldn't probably do this, but I'll say, you know, the research that Mengele did with killing people and bringing them back to life, especially children, this stuff is still being used by pharmaceuticals, the research he did. And I don't know how many people were killed because Da Vinci wanted a body and to see maybe while still living to research the circulatory system. I don't know. Maybe I'm extrapolating here. But what I said about this comment was that, were you, right here, were you aware that Da Vinci invented weapons of mass destruction for the Count of Milan for 18 years? Oh, what a terrific guy he must have been, right? So my point here is that these two are going on and they're genuflecting at this shrine. And what did I say here? P.S. Okay, Notre Dame will be rebuilt to specs in order to do it again to at the next appropriate time in history, because these edifices can be built and destroyed. You know, we say, oh, it's a one of a kind. Yeah, they're magnificent. But as long as they're hijacked, we don't have a chance, people. That's what I'm saying. Like Gandhi said, it could be a good idea if we actually could represent ourselves in the external world, how our inner world has actually evolved. And I say here, with all this astute understanding of the cosmos these two seem to have you understood? I'm asking them, have you understood the real burning that's going on right now every day in a place, in an edifice that's burning called Fukushima? It may not have flames coming out of it like Notre Dame, but the bloody thing is burning. And it's not just burning on site, it's destroying all biology on the planet. Well, geez, you know, Notre Dame is much more impressive. We're not interested in Fukushima. Forget about that place. No, we're intellectuals. We're academics. We understand how the world works, and we don't give a shit about Fukushima. Maybe they know about it, and they know how serious it is, but no, let's spend a half an hour on Notre Dame. How about that? So do you see my self-righteousness here? Like, I feel justified in criticizing these people because they're not understanding that something actually is burning right under their noses. The food that they eat is no longer edible from a place called Fukushima, which burned, and is still burning. Yeah, Notre Dame, and nobody gives a crap about Fukushima. Shame on both of you. So this was my comment. There's so many more things I could add here, and I find outrageous. And I know people are not going to like this because even in my own circles, when I talk about art and how it's actually being used to propagate a world that is not my world. This is a world that I've understood through making paintings. And I'm not saying my paintings are fantastic in terms of someone else's paintings or somebody else's artwork. All I know is I know what it means to make a painting that's beautiful, not in the sense of ugly beautiful, but beautiful in terms that it's significant and meaningful in when a person looks at it. I've understood this in myself. My paintings are fucking amazing in terms of an art history that I've identified with that actually connects me to something that is not out there, but that's within. And if these edifices, like this structure, is actually of value to us, we need to somehow preserve it by internalizing it, not by just saying, oh, it shouldn't be burnt down. Well, you can burn everything down. You can burn everything down and still have the nature of yourself contained. We are within ourselves. We're not out there. This was my commentary, and this is what everybody seems to miss. And I'm on my own in this for the most part. I have to say, people that in my circle, people that like what I do say, how can you trash art history? I'm not trashing art history. I'm trashing what people are incapable of going, like these two, of being able to really internalize something and understand what it means. So anyway, another comment on Notre Dame and the misguidedness among these intellectuals, these types that you know, I don't know, they're well-meaning, maybe, but are no value to me. They're insignificant to me.